Hello, welcome to our lesson. In this lesson, we're going to be talking about measurements of center. The goal for this lesson is to be able to compute the mean, median, and mode of a given data set. The second goal is to be able to determine the best measurement of the central tendency of a given data set. The last goal is to be able to compute the weighted average given the data values and their corresponding weights. Let's start by talking about measurements of central tendency. In other words, measurements of the center of the data. There are three measurements of the center of the data. We call these average. When we say average, we could be referring to mode, median, or the mean. The mode is the data value that occurs the most frequently in the data set. So if you want to find the mode, you're going to look at the list of your data values and you're going to look for the value or values, it could be more than one, with the most frequency. We're going to look at some examples. For now, we're just looking at the definitions. Now, the median is the value in the middle of a sorted list of the data values. So when we're finding the median, we're going to need to order the data set, and we usually order it from smallest to largest, and we're going to find the value exactly at the middle of that list. The third measurement is the mean. This is the arithmetic average of the numbers. Now, the mean is the most common measurement of the center of the data among all three options, but we're going to have some restrictions of when we can use the mean. Now, let's talk about how we calculate the population mean. The population mean, which is labeled using the Greek letter mu, is computed as follows. We're going to take the sum of all x values, that is the sum of all the data values, and we're going to divide it by capital N. Here, capital N represents the size of the population. You can also think of the number of data values that you have. Now, if you're calculating the sample mean, we use x bar to denote the sample mean. If we're calculating the sample mean, x bar, we're going to take the sum of all data values, and we're going to be dividing by n, lowercase n, and we're going to be divided by lowercase n. Lowercase n here represents the size of the sample. Notice it's the same formula. We're summing all the data values and we're dividing by the number of data values that we have. Now, when we talk about the population mean, let me give you an example. If I look at the placement test scores for all GRC students and I compute the mean using those scores, then I'm computing the population mean. Notice I said I'm looking at the scores for all GRC students. Okay. Now, if I randomly select, let's say 1,000 students, and I look at their score for the placement test, I take those scores and I calculate the mean, then I have the sample mean. I have x bar. Okay. So that is the difference. The way we compute the mean is going to be the same. We take the sum of all data values divided by the number of data values that we have. Okay. For the first exercise here, we're going to compute the mean, median, and mode. The table below presents the weight of 5 cats. Calculate the mean, median, and mode of the data set below. Okay. So how many values do we have here? We have 5 data values. The size of this sample is 5. Now, if we want to find the mode, we need to look at the data set to see what value has the most frequency. Okay. In other words, you're looking at what value occurs the most on your data set. In this example, we see that 8.2 is the only data value that repeats. Okay. So our mode is 8.2. Now, if we're going to find the median, there's something that we need to do first before finding the middle value. If we're finding the median, we need to go ahead and order our data list from smallest to largest. Let's go ahead and do that. We have 6.8, we have 7.5, 8.2, 8.2, and 9.4. Okay. Once you order your list from smallest to largest, then you need to go ahead and find the middle value. Okay. I like to cancel values on the left and right, and I keep doing that until I get to the middle value. Okay. This data set is pretty small. It is easy to see that 8.2 is in the middle, but sometimes that is not the case. Okay, and so that's why I wanted to show you the strategy that I use to find the middle value. Okay, so in this case, we have the median being equal to 8.2. To find x bar, we take the sum of all x values, and then we divide by the number of x values that we have. We have 5. Again, here on the denominator, you can think of dividing by the number of x values that you have, or you can think of dividing by the sample size. Remember, if you're going to do this on your calculator, you need to place parentheses around the numerator. You should be getting x bar equal to 8.02. So that is the mean for this data set. I'm just going to write x bar is equal to 8.02. Now, let's look into more examples where we're being asked to calculate the mode. I want to show you cases where we have one value for the mode, two values for the mode, and finally, I want to show you cases where we do not have a mode. So let's look at the first data set. Here in part A, we have the values 1.1, 1.1, 1.2, 1.4, 1.6, 1.7, 1.8. If we're finding the mode, we're looking for the value that occurs with the most frequency. The only value that repeats is 1.1. For this data set, we're seeing that the mode is 1.1. Very similar to the previous example we saw. Now in part B, we have data set containing the data values 11, 11, 12, 12, 19, 20, and 21. We see that 11 repeats twice. We see that 12 also repeats twice. So what's going to be our mode? Our mode is going to be 11 and 12. So let's make a note here. Two values have the highest frequency. Thus, the mode includes both values. Let's go ahead and consider the data values that we have in part C. We have 7, 7, 10, 10, 14, 14, and 20. Notice 7 repeats twice, 10 shows up twice, and 14 also shows up twice. Here we have 3 values with the highest frequency. What's going to be our conclusion? Our conclusion is that, thus, there is no mode. Finding the mode would be none. When you have 3 values with the highest frequency, we say there's no mode. Now let's look at the last data set that we have here below in part D. We have 100, 101, 113, 114, 117, 116, and 118. They all have the same frequency, which is 1. We could write all values have the same frequency. Our conclusion is that there is no mode. Thus, there is no mode. So our answer would be none for the last data set. Let me go back. If one value has the highest frequency, then that value is going to be your mode. If 2 values have the highest frequency, then those 2 values are going to be the mode. Now, if you have more than 2 values with the highest frequency, so if you have 3, 4, if all values have the same frequency, you don't have a mode. So that is the conclusion that you're getting here. I often get asked, can I have 2 modes? Can I have 3? Can I have 4? The answer is you can either have 1 or you can have 2. You cannot have more than 2.